Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, Professor Martin Kaplan.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that hand is for the voice of God, and God appreciates it. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thrilled to have you here. It's an amazing day. A lot of people work really hard to make it happen, and you are those people. If you're watching us now on C-SPAN, or on Facebook Live, if you're here in the room, please enjoy your salads. And above all, welcome to the 12th biennial Walter Cronkite Awards for Excellence in Television Political Journalism. On behalf of the USC Annenberg School for Communication and our sister school at the University of Pennsylvania, the Annenberg School's Annenberg Public Policy Center, we're thrilled to have you. You don't need me to tell you that these are tumultuous times for television, for journalism, and for politics. Although I'm really glad we picked a slow news day for this. From the big lie to AI, it can feel like nothing is stable, that everything is in play. But doesn't that make this the perfect moment to appreciate the First Amendment? Look around this room. Look around your tables. A lot of competitors here, in a good way. But along with the competition, a common purpose. Everyone here is a steward, a trustee, a defender of a free press. Around the world, hundreds of journalists have been abducted, jailed, even killed for just doing their job, telling the truth. You Cronkite Award winners, today, as we honor your excellence, your grit, and your service, we also honor the freedom that protects the journalism you practice. So, right off the bat, please join me in a round of applause for our Cronkite winners, for you, their colleagues, mentors, proteges, family, and friends, and for the tenacious miracle of a free press. Speaking of you winners, when you come up to this podium to speak, I want to thank you in advance for demonstrating that staying within cruel time limits is a snap for TV pros like you. As the voice of God said, I'm Marty Kaplan. For coming on 25 years, I've had the privilege of directing the Norman Lear Center and holding the Norman Lear Chair at USC Annenberg. One of the Lear Center's first initiatives was to establish this award. Why did Walter Cronkite lend his name to it? Well, for one thing, he and Norman valued their friendship and had enormous respect for each other. Norman, by the way, is still going strong. Next month, Kinahara, he'll turn 101. He's watching, by the way, so he, on his behalf, he appreciates the hand. But it went beyond friendship. Both of them were in love with America, and both of them were troubled by many of the same things. The corrosive influence of money in politics, the conquest of journalism by the business model of entertainment, the alarming number of non-voters and low information voters. Here's how Cronkite put it at the 2005 awards.
We are not intelligent enough, we're not educated well enough to perform the necessary act of selecting our leaders for the future. We've got to improve that situation, and it's going to be, to a large degree, up to us in television and radio, in broadcasting, to get that job done. If we fail at that, our democracy, our republic, is, I think, in serious danger.
If television fails to inform us, our democracy, our republic, is in serious danger. That idea, that mission for TV news, those stakes for democracy, has been the DNA of this award in every presidential election and midterm election since 2000. Last year, for the first time, the Cronkite Awards call for entries focused on a single topic: disinformation. We invited entries about what disinformation is, where it comes from, how it spreads, what its consequences are, and how to combat it. That singular focus on disinformation hit a nerve. We received nearly 100 entries, the most ever for a non-presidential election year. Disinformation is an apt focus, in particular for the Cronkite Award, not only because it feels like disinformation is everywhere all at once, but because the namesake of this award is Walter Cronkite. Every weeknight for 19 years, up to 30 million Americans watched Cronkite anchor the CBS Evening News. A poll named him the most trusted man in America. When Cronkite went to Vietnam in 1968 to see for himself whether the US government was telling the truth about winning the war, his report to the American people, "No, it was not," was an inflection point in the war, in politics, and in the job of journalism. Today's award winners are heirs to that legacy. As they did the work they've won for, as they and their colleagues do their work today, disinformation poses some wicked problems for journalists. Problems like, how do you debunk the big lie without amplifying and validating it? How do you push back on disinformation without casting yourself as a performer in an enemy of the people narrative? When one side is asymmetrically untethered to facts, what does fairness look like? If fairness isn't false equivalence, how can being fair be truthful and not partisan? If fairness isn't both sides-ism, how can reporting facts be accuracy and not advocacy? With disinformation everywhere all at once, our theme, how can journalism matter? Well, spoiler alert, the answer to that is right in front of you. This is how journalism can matter. The work of all the winners we honor today, that's journalism mattering. I know that was the last election. What about the next one? What about deep fakes and cheap fakes? Generative AI, large language models like ChatGPT 5 and 6, and all the other looming marvels capable of spreading disinformation at scale. To deal with that disruption, of course, we'll need new antennae, new countermeasures, new guardrails, but we will still also need old values, the ones we honor today's winners for: courage, integrity, independence, fairness, a fierce commitment to truth and democracy. Celebrating you winners for those values in your work is what's coming up next here. But first, we're going to take a very short break to get your main course on the table. Be back soon. I love the din in this room. I love the din in this room, but, sorry to interrupt, you know why we're here. And so we're going to move along. In the category of individual achievement for national political reporting, Cronkite judges made 2 awards this year. The first goes to Washington chief correspondent for ABC News, Jonathan Karl. This is his second Cronkite Award for national political reporting. His first was 10 years ago in 2013. Judges said Jonathan Karl gets at the heart of stories like no other journalist. His dogged reporting debunked the big lie without further disseminating it by using the freedom of the press to push back on public figures' claims as they spewed false information and to hold them accountable for the truth. Let's watch him in action.
In the days after the attack, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy said clearly that Trump bore responsibility for what happened on January 6th, saying at the time,
"The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding."
Today, McCarthy was asked if he still believes that former President Trump bears responsibility.
I thought everybody in the country bared some responsibility.
And on the big question that animated the attack on the Capitol,
do you believe that Donald Trump is just flat wrong when he says the election was stolen?
Look, we've answered this question a long time. Joe Biden is the president. I think you can look that there's a lot of problems still with the election process.
But that wasn't my question. That wasn't my question. I mean, we know he's the president. He lives in the White House. Was it legitimate? Is Donald Trump wrong when he says the election was stolen?
You know, Jonathan,
it's a very
we
simple
talked about
question.
this a long time. I've already answered that
question.
No,
what was the answer? Is Donald Trump wrong when he says the election was stolen?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So you won't answer that?
Jonathan, I've answered it numerous times. I know you have a microphone. I know what you want to do. I've already answered the question.
I just want to know, is he wrong when he says the election was stolen?
Thank you for your time.
You said something last week. You said that there were 740,000 ballots with no chain of custody. Those ballots shouldn't have been counted. Are you really saying that you would throw out the ballots of 740,000, three-quarters of a million Arizonans? I mean, those were
740,000 ballots violated chain of custody requirements in Maricopa County.
I mean, first of all, it's not true. I mean, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors put out a 98-page report that went through these allegations.
That is a fact. Check your facts.
we took that claim to Maricopa County officials, who refuted Lake and pointed to the statement they issued back in May, saying that the county always had control of the ballots, adding they, quote, were sealed in envelopes and secured in boxes that bipartisan couriers are prohibited from opening.
But just to be clear, the Republicans on the Board of Supervisors, the Republican governor, now the Republican candidate for Senate running along with you, the Republican Attorney General under Donald Trump, Bill Barr, all said that there wasn't, that the election was not stolen.
Are we going to sit and litigate this?
No,
I'm happy to do
just,
it.
I'm just wondering why they would all lie.
But you guys are obsessed. We have a lot of corruption in this system, and they don't want. I think a lot of people who were responsible for that election know that there were rules broken and laws broken, and they don't want to admit fault. Okay?
Like Bill Barr,
and that's fine. We're going to go forward, and we're going to make sure going forward our elections are secure.
Two years ago, Jonathan Karl was asked, if Trump runs again, what do you think reporters covering him should keep in mind? He answered that question with a question. How do you sit down for long, live interviews with a candidate who's trying to destroy the very system that makes his or her election possible. Jonathan was looking forward to being here with us this morning, but something involving espionage and obstruction upended his plans. We're glad he could break away from the breaking news, though, for a moment to accept his award.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you to the team at the Norman Lear Center and the great Annenberg School of Journalism at USC. This award is especially meaningful to me because it recognizes a body of work, a true ABC News team effort that is central to our mission as journalists. The award covers 2 years of reporting, a period beginning 3 weeks after the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol. That is significant because the assault on our democracy, the assault on truth, the assault on a free press whose mission is the pursuit of that truth did not end when the rioters were expelled from the U.S. Capitol. As long as I have been a political reporter, I have felt to the core of my being that my job depends on being a fair and neutral arbiter. I have always believed that the best political journalists do not take sides. Like virtually every human being, I have my own opinions, but they are irrelevant to my job. I may never be purely objective. I'm not sure that is even possible. But when I am covering political debates or campaigns, I don't take sides. I still believe that is central to our mission. But I also know this. There is one area where we as journalists must take sides. We stand for truth. We stand against disinformation. When confronted with those who tell us that up is down or day is night, or that a free and fair election was stolen, or that an attack on the Capitol was nothing more than a tourist visit, we must take a side. The truth is the truth, and it is our duty, our responsibility, to call out disinformation, to expose it, to tell the truth. These are monumentally challenging times for our democracy and for journalism. As the tools of disinformation become even more sophisticated, exposing lies and correcting the record will become even more difficult and more important. A free and fair press isn't the enemy of the people. It is a vital part of a free society, and it has never been more important than it is now. Thank you to Annenberg for this award. Thank you to my incredibly talented friends and colleagues at ABC News who made this work possible. And thank you to our president, Kim Godwin, for your unwavering support of our work and of our mission.
To share the privilege of presenting these awards, I'm thrilled to be joined by my journalism faculty colleague and now Professor Emerita at USC Annenberg, an Emmy, DuPont Columbia, and Peabody Award-winning correspondent, a longtime judge of the Cronkite Awards, and a great friend, and please tell her you think that picture is really flattering, Judy Muller.
Thank you, Marty. It's good to see everybody here. This year's other award for individual achievement in national political reporting goes to 2 CNN journalists, senior correspondent Kyung La and senior producer Anna Maya Ripard. I hope I said that correctly. La Ripard worked the state-level democracy beat for CNN for 2 years, confronting power, asking tough questions, and digging deep. Judges said they never gave up. It's strong storytelling that gives an intimate, first-hand look into how false election claims affect the local community. Here's a clip.
The carnival has arrived at the Arizona State Fairgrounds in Phoenix. This one in the parking lot is called the Crazy Times Carnival. Inside the Coliseum is a different sort of spectacle, replaying the big lie in the 2020 election. This is yet another tally of the nearly 2.1 million ballots in Maricopa County. But this so-called audit is unlike any other. These are ballot counters heading into a shift.
Have you ever done election counting before?
No, but there's nothing to it. It's pretty obvious.
No thanks.
Most don't want to talk. Others?
We're just trying to do a story about the count.
Openly partisan, as you see displayed on some cars and in what they say.
Are you OAN? I'm sorry, what?
What news group are you from?
I'm from CNN.
Oh, okay. No, thank you.
People are wondering what to look out for in that audit.
OAN, or One American News Network, is the small, far right-wing outlet that has promoted false claims that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. OAN is also live streaming the event, and its hosts have helped raise funds for this exercise. We were initially told we could not enter the publicly owned Arizona State Fairgrounds, but when we tried again another time...
Hey, I'm Kyung Law with CNN.
CNN? Okay. You guys will be on the second level.
So we can get in.
Yeah.
We followed that officer's instructions.
There is media parking.
But then, these guys showed up.
I'm not authorized to speak to the press or the media.
Even though these uniformed men look like police, they're not. They're a volunteer group called the Arizona Rangers.
So you're trespassing.
This man talking to me is wearing a badge from Cyber Ninjas. That's the Florida-based company being paid $150,000 by the GOP-controlled state Senate to conduct this election review.
Accepting the award, Kyung La and Anna Maha Rapar.
Set this down. Thank you so much. It's an honor to receive the Walter Cronkite Award. We want to thank the USC Annenberg School of Journalism and the Norman Lear Center for recognizing our work. Over 2 years of reporting at the state level and crisscrossing the country, we did not expect to be here. It's a little weird to be accepting this Democracy Award when neither Kyung nor I were born in the United States. I'm a native of Düsseldorf, Germany, where I was born 1 year before the wall that divided East and West Germany came crumbling down. Kyung is a native of Seoul, South Korea, where she never knew her father's side of the family because they were trapped in North Korea, an entire section of her family's history unwritten. Democracy is not theoretical. It shapes our world, our history, and our families. And often, the ones who we rely on to defend it are just ordinary people, the most ordinary among us. In our reporting, they took the form of a pistol-packing grandmother and a city clerk in Detroit to the motel manager who rented us a room to use so we could watch Doug Mastriano's so-called secret rally next to a Radisson pool. Ordinary Americans fighting lies and disinformation from the likes of Cyber Ninjas to Cowboy Andy, who you saw in that clip, and armed vigilantes at ballot boxes. More often than not, our stories always returned us to a hot pavement in Arizona in 110-degree weather. Not made for me. What started as a partisan ballot review next to the Crazy Times Carnival eventually led us to a shed in a cooled room that was cooled by swamp coolers next to the public bathrooms. It is the bravery of ordinary Americans standing up to the lies, threats, and even abuse in their own communities that formed the very spine of our stories. Our work is not done, and thanks to our CNN family, that work continues.
I got one. Just gonna sleep with that. We do want to thank CNN, our beloved network, for allowing us the space to report in this beat, especially our fearless leader, Virginia Mosley, who carved out the time for us. We can't believe with all this news that you managed to make it here. It's very special for us. Thank you. To Political Director David Chalian and Deputy Political Director Terrence Burley, who taught me how to navigate reporting in US politics when I was so much more familiar with the politics of Asia.
to Sam Feist for your leadership, to our fearless Arizona embed, Kate Sullivan, to MJ Lee, my Korean sister. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. So I knew Anna-Mai and I would be a great reporting pair, not just because we see the world from our vantage point as outsiders, but because Anna-Mai's parents are German and Dutch. Both are therapists, which makes her an extraordinary producer on the road. My parents owned a liquor store in Chicago. I leave it to you what kind of asset that is on the road. In one corner, they sold 40 ounces and cases of beer. In the center of the store was the newsstand, where there was the Chicago Tribune, the Sun-Times, the Daily Herald that my father absorbed trying to understand this country that he had just plopped us down into. And next to the newsstand was Playboy, Penthouse, Cherry Magazine, which all led my mom to exclaim, "What a country." And it is that curiosity, not that corner of that room, that really makes us want to attack political stories and makes us want to bring out those voices, the politically powerless. They are the ordinary people, they are the readers, they are our viewers. It is an extraordinary gift for all of us to be here, to be working in news, to be among you. We are two immigrant kids reporting on the politics of an adopted country in our second language, where those words are protected by the US Constitution. We are so proud to be with you today. We are incredibly honored to accept this award. But most of all, we're so proud to be American journalists.
We have 2 awards for National Political Program. The first goes to Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, moderated by CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Margaret Brennan and executive produced by Mary Hager. Judges praised Brennan's concerted efforts to combat disinformation. She pushes back and puts guests in the hot seat in a fair and respectful manner. Margaret Brenner and the Face the Nation team remind their viewers that an inability to accept electoral defeat is not the norm and puts our democracy at risk. Here she is with CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent Major Garrett and election integrity contributor David Becker.
How dangerous is the moment that we are in?
It feels more dangerous, Margaret, than any I've encountered in covering politics at the national level since 1990. Stating what clearly happened in 2020, it wasn't a fraudulent election, no crime was committed. That doesn't mean you have to be happy with the result, but one of the burdens of democracy is when you're unhappy with the result, your obligation is to win the next election, not slander baselessly the election you fairly lost. Mm-hmm. And we have a component of American politics now that wants to slander an election that was fairly lost because they're unhappy. And that unhappiness does not entitle you to drag down American democracy, because if, Margaret, we enter a phase in American life where either political party refuses to accept a fair and verified election simply because it lost, then we will dismantle democracy bit by bit before our very eyes.
One of our colleagues here, Nicole Skenga, interviewed Kim Wyman. She is the senior election security lead at part of Homeland Security. She spent 30 years working in elections out in the state of Washington. And in this interview, she clearly is feeling that this threat is hitting home. Take a listen.
Some of the threats are real, you know, we're going to hang you, I hope somebody puts a bullet in your head, that kind of thing. So it's unnerving. It's unnerving.
It's a Homeland Security official being moved to tears by what she is talking about. I mean, it's extremely powerful to me to hear that. How common is that right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's very common. She, like so many of her colleagues, and she's seeing this because she's working with them, are facing an onslaught of threats and harassment and abuse in the aftermath of the 2020 election that is completely divorced from the reality of their success. The election professionals all over the country, red states, blue states, Republicans, Democrats, somehow managed the highest turnout we have ever seen in American history in the middle of a global pandemic.
Margaret Brennan is unable to join us today, but we're glad to have this video message from her.
And thank you to Mary Hager, who is an institution unto herself and an incredible partner to me as we navigate these tumultuous political waters of the moment. I am grateful to USC Annenberg for this recognition today. Team Face the Nation strives each and every Sunday to carry on the legacy of CBS icon Walter Cronkite, and we're honored to receive this recognition in his name. I believe that information is the currency of this democracy, and the quality of the information that voters take in impacts how they engage with it. Every week, we strive to illuminate key issues and to cut through an increasingly crowded news environment with clarity, context, and civil conversations. Low-confidence societies with weak institutions are ripe for misinformation and for manipulation. And that is why we think of the hour we have on Sundays as a chance to earn and rebuild trust in the institution that is journalism. We have to rebuild it. That means our interviews increasingly require on-the-spot fact-checking and pushback against distortion, which means hours of research and preparation are an essential part of the build-up each week to the 1 hour of live programming that you see on Sunday mornings. Our hope is to inform opinions, not just affirm pre-existing ones. There are a lot of tough issues right now, and I hope we can continue the 69-year-old tradition at Face the Nation of fair, respectful, and sometimes uncomfortable questioning of those in power. So a special thank you to all the producers, editors, and support team that put together Face the Nation.
And accepting the award for Face the Nation in person, executive producer Mary Hager.
Thank you all so much for this. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Margaret, who is with her family this week and lamenting the fact that she's not here, but also really lamenting the fact that there's this big, juicy political story that is unfolding on our watch, and she cannot be here to moderate the show on Sunday. So we'll handle that, but she really does wish she could be here. I do want to thank the Face the Nation team, because it truly is a team effort every single Sunday, all the work that we put into the show. And I want them to stand and go ahead, and I will acknowledge them. And also there are a few of them that cannot be here, but senior broadcast producer Ann Shue, senior editorial producer Avery Miller, senior booking producer Carol Joint, coordinating producer Jake Miller, supervising producer Dina Fry, producers Richard Escobedo, Claire Moran, and Kelsey Miklas. Associate producers Jake Rosen and Sierra Sanders, broadcast associate Sophia Barkoff, studio tech manager Laura Ferran, who is responsible for getting all these characters on the air every Sunday, as well as our brand new intern, Erica Love, who we are very happy to have helping us this summer. Plus, in the back, Hugo Rojo and Amanda Leonard, who are our fantastic comms team who help us get our message out to the public. We also are very lucky and blessed to have the strongest political reporters in the business. They all contribute to the role that we play in being able to devote the time and space to focusing on the issues like democracy and crying foul when it comes to misinformation. Just a handful of them, but Major Garrett, Rob Legary, Finn Gomez, Ed O'Keefe, Robert Costa, Scott McFarland, Anthony Salvanto, Arden Fari, Rebecca Kaplan, Aaron Navarro, and David Becker, as well as Nicole Skanga. We just really appreciate all that they do for us. It does take a team effort to put this show together, and we really appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Shue, by the way, is a former student of mine at USC. Just thought I'd point that out. Our other award for National Political Program goes to Threat to Democracy episode of Nightline's weekly streaming magazine, Impact by Nightline, reported by ABC News senior national correspondent, my old friend and ABC colleague, Terry Moran. Terry Moran and his small producing team took 2 months to win the trust of Atlanta poll workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the first time they spoke to the press after the January 6th committee hearings. Judges called it a powerful showcase, explaining the harrowing personal consequences of disinformation for ordinary, real people. This kind of intimate storytelling, judges said, deeply humanizes a political story and should be acknowledged as worthwhile journalism. Let's see a clip.
When I heard that call that he made to the Secretary of State office, I had hope.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is it. He just told on himself. That's it. It's going to be over with, but...
That would be the end of it.
Yes.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
From the moment those videos went viral online, Ruby and Shay started getting threats. Shay said her Facebook was filled with messages from total strangers.
I have to admit, I looked at every single one. They were saying that I should be hung, me and my mom will die, and, you know, like burning crosses. It's like a slap in the face, like just very hateful things.
They would say really, really bad racist stuff, you know. We know where you live, nigga. We coming to get you.
There's social media, and then there's real life. Were you afraid you'd be killed?
They were making death threats, yeah.
Ruby's address was posted online, and people began showing up at her home and harassing her. Shay's last known address was her grandmother's house, so people started going there, too.
But she's a little lady, so she just opens the door and they were pushing her, and like she called me while they were right there, you know, just screaming.
They were stalking you.
Yes. Yes, they said that they had the right to make a citizen's arrest, and the punishment for treason is death in U.S.
The threats escalated to the point that the FBI told Shay and Ruby to go into hiding ahead of January 6th, 2021.
I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just out here. I feel homeless. I don't have nowhere to go. I don't know nothing. And yeah, I was just out there for a moment.
How'd you deal with that?
By the grace of God.
Accepting the award. Accepting the award for Threat to Democracy, correspondent Terry Moran, and Impact by Nightline executive producer Iman Barakwa.
Thank you very much. Thanks to to Annenberg and USC, and we accept this on behalf of our team, our can-do, brave team that did so much. I must say, I personally feel humbled up here with the other journalists that you've recognized. And just, I'd also say that I love this story. I love doing this story. I love doing it with this team, and I loved meeting the people we did. Shay and Ruby and the others, election workers that we met in Colorado and Arizona and elsewhere, in a crazy and dark time, as others have said, stepped up, showed up, and helped us have a free and fair election in the teeth of death threats, in the teeth of hatred in their own neighborhoods. The county clerk in Colorado we met, who had to wear a bulletproof vest to work every day on the advice of the sheriff of the town, take a different route to work every day because of the threats he was receiving. So we felt that terror that had descended in this crazy time on people, but we also felt their pride, their courage, and their happiness at doing what they were doing. These ordinary people, as others have said, who make our democracy work. We've all got a role, each one of us, as citizens and as reporters, in making American democracy work. And in the dark time, there was a real ray of hope in here. Not just the bravery of the people who didn't sign up to be brave, but found it in themselves to do their job in that election. But also, we met several people who were election deniers, doubters and deniers, and who went to work as election workers or were hired by that county clerk in Colorado to get a look at where the corruption was. And they, to a person, said, I see. It can't be fixed. It can't be rigged. And just like every other election worker out there, went to work with pride and happiness, and in that I did find a ray of hope in the darkness, that people will still do this, despite everything. And that spirit, that American spirit, to guard the treasure of our elections, that's going to get us through, I think. Thank you very much.
That was so good. We are so honored to win this. We want to say thank you to Annenberg. A big thank you to the team with us today. Terry, Candace, Kate, Izzy, Luke, Laura, Surin, and everyone in New York, and all of our ABC colleagues here who support us every day. And to our fearless leaders who let us do this great work, Kim Godwin, Rena Mehta, Justin Dial. We set out to show the real-life impact of election disinformation, how it not only hurts our democracy, but also puts real lives at stake. But at the same time, we also wanted to show the flip side, how minds can actually change when presented with the truth. So on behalf of the entire Impact by Nightline team, thank you so much. We're so honored. Thank you.
The next group of awards honor 4 documentaries. All of them, yes, all 4, were produced by Frontline, the longtime public television documentary series from WGBH in Boston and distributed by PBS. 1,000 Cuts, produced for Frontline by Ramona Diaz, opens our aperture on disinformation to a global view. It took considerable courage to make. Judges said 1,000 Cuts does an unbelievable job illustrating the nuances, vulnerabilities that disinformations and disinformation campaigns all at play. In the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte's epic battle with the press over facts and truth. The feature-length film follows the story of one of Duterte's prime targets, journalist Maria Ressa, calling it both deeply disturbing and deeply inspiring. Judges said this film masterfully depicts a recipe for national disaster that applies to all of us globally. Let's watch a clip.
Impunity in the drug war was a continuing series. We put faces and names to the people being killed. We demanded the government be held accountable. Anyone on Facebook who questioned the people who were being killed was automatically bashed. We began to gather data. We began to look at the accounts attacking all of media. We stumbled onto something. Disinformation networks. When you see the network that spreads it, you can follow other networks, and then you can see its growth. Mid-September, I started writing. First, the weaponization of the internet. The second piece was how Facebook algorithms impact democracy. As soon as we released it, we got pounded. I was getting an average of 90 hate messages per hour. Mocha Uson blog. She attacked Rappler, said, oh, Rappler's CIA. Followed by another blogger, Thinking Pinoy, who seeded the ideas that were foreign controlled.
Rappler is misrepresenting itself in an essence.
Oo nga, parang ano ito eh, foreign-based to eh. Itong Rappler na ito. Diba? Hindi po talaga sila Filipino-owned company.
It was the second State of the Nation address. It comes out of President Duterte's own mouth.
Rappler tried to pierce the identity, and you will end up American ownerships. You are supposed to be 100% Filipino.
Of course, we were covering it live. I automatically tweeted, Mr. President, you're wrong. I was told later on that offended him. What do you do when the president lies? Then it's repeated 1 million times. So people have no idea what the truth is.
Accepting the award for 1,000 Cuts is producer Ramona Diaz.
Wow, this is such an honor. I want to thank the Annenberg School, USC Annenberg School, and the Norman Lear Center for this honor. It's really been a crazy ride with this film. And of course, I want to thank Frontline, those two tables over there, and especially Rainey Aronson Rath, R-A-R, because she is, what can I say about Rainey? She's supportive, she's a straight shooter, and she does what she says. And for an independent filmmaker like me, who we never know if what we're spending our lives doing 2-3 years in this film will ever get seen, ever. So we're out there making these crazy films, and we never know until maybe after the premiere. And so Frontline, after our premiere at Sundance, actually came in and scooped up the film, and they've never let go since. That was back in 2020. So the only reason I'm here in 2023 is because Frontline, Rainey and her team have not stopped pushing this film, because you can make these films, there's so much content out there, but if no one sees it, you know, what's the point? So thank you, oh my God, Rainey and everyone at Frontline, Erica, Social Impact, she was great, and everyone at Frontline. I really, I'm super humbled by your work on behalf of this film. And of course, as a documentary filmmaker, I'm only as good as the people I film and spend years with, really typically, yeah, years. So I want to thank Maria Ressa. Right now, she's in Rome. I told her I'm getting this award. And she says hello to everyone. She goes, oh, those are my peeps. I said, they are your peeps. So she says hello. She had when we approached her in 2018, this was pre-Time Person of the Year, pre-Nobel Peace Prize. She was getting harassed by the government, and gosh, was getting arrested so many times. Basically, she had no reason to say yes to us, but she did. And now I know why, because as a journalist, she really understands the importance of the record, of recording what's happening. So she said yes, and she gave us access. She gave us, she trusted us with her story, so I thank her, and especially her young journalists at Rappler, who did not flinch when the most powerful person in the land came after them. So I really want to dedicate this award to them, because a lot of them, it was their first job, their first gig, and they found themselves at Rappler when Rappler was being harassed by the government, and they didn't flinch. You know, their courage is, to me, ineffable. So I want to dedicate this award to them and the work they do in the Philippines and really everywhere, to all the young journalists just coming into the field. Thank you.
Making this next documentary also took a lot of courage. Putin's War at Home was directed by Geshbin Mohammed and produced for Frontline by her and Vasily Kolotilov. Judges said that journalism is no more powerful than what is exhibited here. Made at incredible risk to the journalists and their subjects, they said, this film intricately peels back the layers of the Russian war in Ukraine by revealing how the failure to expose, debunk, or prevent disinformation directly impacts or jeopardizes people's lives. Let's watch a clip.
I wanted to give the voice to the people who are opposing the war that Russia started. They're opposing the repressions that are going on in the country. The Russian government wants people to think that all Russians are supporting the war. It's not true. It doesn't work like that.
Olga and Yelena learned that a nearby sports complex was being used as a funeral hall. They managed to get inside and film.
Спокойно прошла и увидела сначала один гроб, и вокруг люди, потом второй гроб, и третий, и четвертый. И это был шок.
Olga and Yelena reported the names of the dead soldiers on their website. They also wrote about the impact of the war on the local community. The region is estimated to have one of the highest casualty rates from the war in the country. The government blocked Russians from accessing the website, claiming the journalists were spreading inaccurate information.
И все. А никто у нас не пишет истории, например, об этих людях. Никто не пишет интервью с их матерями, с семьями, не делает об этом ничего.
But the journalists continued their investigation into military deaths in Ukraine. They began building a database of hundreds of Russian fighters from this area killed in the war.
Ну, какая может быть демократия, если человек вообще не может сказать ничего против?
The Cronkite Award for Putin's War at Home goes to Geshbin Mohammed and Vasily Kolotilov, accepting Geshbin Mohammed.
Thank you so much for this award. We're very honored to be here today. I'm going to keep it short because we have a recorded message from our producer, Vasily Kolotilov.
Hello, everyone. It's been over 15 months since President Putin started his war in Ukraine. At the same time, in Russia, he also launched the biggest crackdown on human rights since the end of the Soviet era. Today, in Russia, those opposing the war are subjected to immense pressure. From losing one's job for small talk with a colleague, to getting beaten up by the police after a protest, to facing up to 15 years imprisonment for speaking out. Russia has shifted towards extreme authoritarianism, cracking down on free speech through repression and censorship, while ramping up relentless and dangerous war propaganda. Disguised with lies, both to its own people and to the rest of the world, fueled with resentment and false ideas, the dictator started an unprovoked attack and invasion. A local issue has become a global problem. In response to that, filming in secrecy for 6 months, we attempted to counter Putin's lies and tell the stories of defiant Russians who are taking a stand against the war in Ukraine and Putin's regime. I'm greatly honored to have this speech today, and thank you for the award.
Adding to that, obviously Putin's propaganda about the invasion of Ukraine has also infiltrated the minds of others around the world, including here in America. For countering misinformation and fighting for free speech and democratic values, we want to thank our brave contributors who risk their lives by speaking to us. Their courage is off the charts, to say the least. Special thanks also to producer Sasha Odinova for her dedication and knowledge. And it goes without saying that it would have been impossible to make this film without our Russia-based team, including Vasily Kolotilov and many others whose real names I can't reveal for their security. I'd also like to thank executive producer Isella Hawkey at Hard Cash Productions for her unwavering support, as well as the UK's ITV commissioning editor, Tom Giles, for the opportunity to tell this story. And we are also massively grateful to Frontline, the brilliant Rainey Aronson-Raff, the meticulous Andrew Metz, and the whole team at Frontline for their support, dedication in helping shape this documentary. Thank you, everyone.
Disinformation in the Philippines, disinformation in Russia, and now disinformation in the United States, as documented in Lies, Politics, and Democracy, directed by Michael Kirk and produced for Frontline by Michael Kirk, Mike Weiser, and Vanessa Fica, with reporting by Tim Alberta and Jelani Cobb. Judges called this behind-the-scenes account of Trump and his allies a masterpiece, fair, accurate, remarkably clear, and definitive, showing how disinformation can destroy effective communication and turn lies into reality. The film is a powerful advocate for democratic norms. Let's watch a clip.
If there is no real consequence and there's no exile for a political figure who's orchestrated this kind of violence, and this person remains not only within the fold, but still effectively, culturally, the leader of the party.
My fellow Americans, our movement is far from over. In fact, our fight has only just begun.
Then it only means that it's much more possible that we would have an election where a loser would be able, through political subversion and use of force, to actually gain power and become the president.
For Liz Cheney, who had voted for impeachment, January 6th was a turning point.
She crossed the Rubicon. She experienced January 6th to a point where it was so traumatic she can't come back from it. She made the decision that I'm going to fight this battle. If it costs me my job, so be it. The verdict of history is worth it to me. This is what I'm willing to do.
Kevin McCarthy and his allies voted Cheney out of the leadership.
Congresswoman, do you feel betrayed by today's vote?
I think that it is an indication of where the Republican Party is, and I think that the party is in a place that we've got to bring it back from. We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president. Thank you.
In her primary, McCarthy and other Republicans endorsed Cheney's opponent and ultimately helped to defeat her.
The Republican Party is in a very grave place. The Republican Party is the party of Trump. And what comes with that is that you're the party of the big lie. You're the party of undermining American democracy. It's the party that's swiftly pivoted back to this man, and it's gonna end up hurting them in the long run.
The Cronkite Award for Lies, Politics and Democracy goes to Michael Kirk, Mike Weiser, and Vanessa Fica. Accepting the award on behalf of the team is Jelani Cobb with producer Vanessa Fica.
First, Mike Kirk couldn't be here because, fittingly enough, he's working hard on his next film. And as with everyone who has preceded me, very much indebted to and very respectful of everything that Rainey Aronson-Rath has done. Also, you do not want to be late. So you want to make sure that you're on time working with Rainey, and so he's working on that. He's working on that right now. So it falls to me just to say a few words on his behalf and on behalf of this film. And what occurred to me at the outset is something that I tell students, and for years have told students at the beginning of my American history course. And what I'd say to them is that the first thing that you have to understand is that in the span of human history, democracy is a fairly new occurrence. That when we think about the span of the past, the great majority of people who have ever lived on this planet have existed under one form of tyranny or another. And the point at which there came to be constraints upon the power and the authority of people who govern, and the point at which the rights of individuals who are governed became the primary focus and the primary point of government is new. And what I would say to them is that it would be like a person who has had a 20-year smoking habit who has gone 3 months without a cigarette. It's admirable, but also key that you bear in mind that the negative habit persisted much longer than the new habit has. And in that way, the safeguarding of democracy is the work that falls to every single one of us, particularly those of us who work in journalism. We have seen in this nation's history what happens in the course of disputed elections, most notably in 1824 and in 1876, both of which had disastrous consequences. The 1824 election resulted in the collapse of the two-party system in the United States. The 1876 election resulted in the end of Reconstruction, which set off waves of violence brutality and murder directed at the newly emancipated enslaved population, formerly enslaved population throughout the South. And so what is key to this is maintaining a steadfast adherence to the belief that the truth exists, that it can be discovered, and that in disseminating it, we can make a difference in people's lives. The last point that I'll make very quickly is to say that when we look at the history of demagogues in American life, they have typically mastered one form of media or another. If we go back to the 1930s, we saw Father Coughlin, who made use of what was then the novel technology of radio. If we looked in the 1950s and we saw the rise of Joseph McCarthy, he had figured out ways to game print newspapers and say that if he could, as I would tell my students, he would lie exponentially, knowing that the newspapers could only fact-check arithmetically, and would be able to give a kind of exponential injection of untruth into the American public. And these are things that we should be mindful of in the era of social media. The problem may be significant and may be serious, but is not novel. And as media came to understand how to rise to the challenge that was before us in those other circumstances, we can do the same in this moment. And the last thing that I'll say is that I want to make sure that we speak for everyone. Obviously, we are very much indebted to Rainey and for everyone who was involved, producers Michael Kirk, Mike Weiser, and Vanessa Fica, reporters Tim Alberta, myself, and also Vanessa Fica, and Brooke Nelson Alexander, and writers who are Mike Kirk and Mike Weiser, and also Elliot Choi as editor. So thank you.
It's a lot of amazing things that people are saying. This is really quite a wonderful opportunity for all of us. Our fourth Frontline winner is Plot to Overturn the Election, directed and produced by Samuel Black with correspondent A.C. Thompson. The film was made in the course of a year-long investigative collaboration with Frontline's partner, ProPublica. Judges said that the time and effort that went into it seemed almost overwhelming. Its relentless digging uncovers how a small group secretly conspired to spread disinformation about a rigged election. Said one judge, "Until I saw this, I thought I knew the truth behind the Dominion lies." Here's how it begins.
An election permeated with fraud. Is that an election?
We all know that Biden didn't get 80 million votes. Give me a break.
I've come to Phoenix, Arizona.
We already have a president, and his name is Donald Trump.
It's been more than a year since Donald Trump was defeated.
We will, if I have anything to say about it, decertify the November 2020 presidential election.
If you don't think that fraud exists in the election and you don't think the election was stolen, you're either stupid or you're just not that bright.
But across the country, millions of Americans continue to believe that the election was stolen from him. I'm here to talk to a man who's a big part of the reason why.
We're excited to hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thanks it's an honor to be able to do it.
Patrick Byrne is a former CEO who spent millions of dollars casting doubt on Joe Biden's election.
When I go up on the stage, it would be a good shot to come up behind me and film that because the whole crowd.
Gentlemen, please stand to your feet and greet Patrick Feel the Bird!
He's part of a right-wing movement spreading the idea that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump.
There's overwhelming evidence that it happened in November 20, that the election was rigged, and we're now at the point that...
The movement is trying to gain political power and change the way elections are run. I'm here because I want to understand the stolen election myth. Where did it come from? Who's behind it? And how is the ongoing battle over the last election threatening the next one?
We are going to defeat this.
Accepting the award on behalf of Samuel Black and A.C. Thompson is the editor-in-chief of ProPublica, Frontline's reporting partner on Plot to Overturn the Election, Stephen Engelberg.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, it's quite an honor to be here. I feel like a little bit of an interloper since I've spent most of my life in text journalism, but never mind. Thanks to the Rainey Aronson, of whom you've heard so much. I've had a little bit of an introduction to this field as well. I'm accepting the award on behalf of A.C. Thompson and Samuel Black. I thought I would tell you a little bit about A.C. Thompson, who was one of the original hires at ProPublica. A genuine tough guy, former amateur cage fighter, bicycle messenger in San Francisco. If you've ever been there, you know what that means. He's done great work for us over the years. After the 2020 election, he came into my office and he said, before I came here, I had covered neo-Nazis and the far right. I think this is going to be important. We should create a beat for that, and I want to do it. And I said, fine, go ahead. That soon led to him and a team being at Charlottesville and shooting film, and a frontline documentary that followed. Along the way, AC reported stories that led to the indictment of a number of people who were there who had escaped punishment for what they had done. And this, in turn, led to a series of online and then more direct kind of attacks on him and his family. I don't want to go into all of it. Suffice it to say that Frontline and ProPublica ultimately had to hire private security for A.C. Thompson. So this work, while, by the way, not in any way similar to what it's like to work in the Philippines or Russia today, is not without risk. So after the 2020 election, I called up Rainey and I said, we have this amazing story on the backstory. We have a trove of emails. And I can tell you that her heart leapt. It's very visual when you have a trove of emails. We're really going to have a great film. And then I said, but wait, there's more. We have a very grainy shot, a still photo of Michael Flynn cutting a turkey at the plantation of Lynn Wood for Thanksgiving, where all the people have gathered for this. And so we have one still photo and a bunch of emails. And she said, God love her, that sounds great. Let's get to work. And so we did. And it was an intricately reported story. Doug Bach-Clark on our staff at ProPublica, not one, not two, but three editors, Mara Shalhoub, Kit Rackless, and T. Christian Miller. Our lawyer, Jeremy Kuttner, who I have to mention because one of the sources in this story is emailing us once a week with complaints more than a year later. And I have now got a thing on my email set up where it goes directly to Jeremy Kuttner. So thank you, Jeremy, for continuing to read those emails and to get us legally through this. I did want to say, very much in closing, it flew by when Marty Kaplan was speaking. He said a word that maybe not everybody either knew or was familiar with, kinahara. Kinahara. So I did want to check, I did look on my phone to double check because I have a memory of this. It is a Yiddish word. The German kind means no. Hara means, einhara means evil eye. And people of a certain generation, including my immigrant Russian grandparents, would say this word when anything nice was said about anyone. I mean, first of all, you should say nothing nice because the evil eye will catch you. But if you have to say something nice, kinahara. No evil eye. Nonetheless, I want to say something nice about Rainey Aronson. Kinahara. I have been working with Rainey Aronson on films, not through one, not through two, but three organizations. I did my first work with her when I was the founder of the New York Times Investigative Unit, and we decided to do a piece in the year 2000, I think, 1998, on a relatively obscure guy named Osama bin Laden. On September 11th, 2001, there were calls to Frontline from the White House saying, could you send over 20 copies of that biographical film? I moved over to the Oregonian as a managing editor. We did a documentary on the growth and outbreak of meth in the Northwest. And since my time at ProPublica, I've actually lost count, but I believe the forthcoming film will be our 15th, 14th, 16th, who even knows? And I would just say, you know, that in coming into your world as somebody who started off writing in words, the collaborative nature of the work that you do in film is really an eye-opener to me and to our colleagues at ProPublica. We certainly couldn't do it without Rainey and Andrew Metz and the Frontline team who managed to take grainy photos of Thanksgiving turkeys and a bunch of emails and turn it into an actual film. So thank you very much for this award.
So 4 Frontline documentaries have picked up 4 Cronkite Awards. Either there's something in the water in Boston, or there's something about Frontline itself. Judges concluded that it's the latter. They said that Frontline's consistent commitment to trustworthy journalism sets the standard we wish all news organizations would follow. So a fifth Cronkite Award goes to Frontline itself, the whole enterprise, its newsroom, its staff, its leadership, its journalism. No other program or network has won as many Cronkites at one time as Frontline has today. Accepting is Frontline's editor-in-chief and executive producer, Kainahara Rainey Aronson Rath. This one's yours.
Well, all of you who aren't Frontline, thank you for bearing with us. We are long form, after all, long form documentary. And I love all of your work. It was deeply inspiring seeing the clips again and being reminded of our collective effort. So congratulations to everyone. So it was wonderful, I will be honest, to get that call from Marty because he really surprised me. He kept saying this film and that film and another film, and I was like, actually, are you kidding? I thought at a certain point he was joking, but he kept telling me, nope, this is a moment for you at Frontline, and we needed it. It's been a lot of work. I know you all feel it too. This is a really, really important time for us all to be doing the work that we are doing, but that doesn't make it easy. I can see you all smiling because you know it's true, and moments like this, collective moments like this are important, and I just want to thank everybody in the room. As Marty shared the news, I thought of the brave work that you've just heard about. Ramona Diaz, her work in the Philippines, Maria Reza, who has always been my North Star, and her challenges. I thought of A.C. Thompson, who you just heard Steve talk so eloquently about. What an amazing reporter, and what has he gone through to do the work that he has done for ProPublica and Frontline, and for the health of our democracy. I thought about Steve Engelberg. He gave you our biography. It's been amazing. He always comes in early and late, I will tell you, with the biggest notes of all time. Last week's note actually had a mathematical equation in it. Thank you very much, Steve. And we had to get that on the air. It's airing next week, frankly. Not yet. It's a very difficult mathematical equation. There's also Michael Kirk. You heard from Jelani Cobb and Vanessa Fica. Jelani Cobb is one of our most stalwart partners and now leads the journalism school at Columbia. I'm so proud of the work you're doing. I just want to say the collaboration with Michael Kirk and his team goes back to year one at Frontline, which is 40 years, and he has an amazing body of work. I want to also talk about Gesh. You heard from her, Gesh Mohammed. The work that they did to collect the stories out of Russia are nothing short of amazing. I hope you'll take the time. It is long form, so it's like hours, okay? But take a look at some of this work because it's incredible what journalists are doing all around the world. They can be a source of inspiration for all of us. It's also given me a moment, I think it's important, to reflect on Frontline in our editorial standards and on the people who work with me. The editors and senior producers who uphold our standards day in and day out. Steve mentioned collaborative journalism, right? And we all know, those of us who work in television, what a collaboration it is. Many of Frontline's senior team are with me today. They're over there. I will not make you stand, but you know how much I appreciate you. Starting with Andrew Metz, our managing editor. Years ago, we made a pact and a promise to each other as we were taking over Frontline, not to just uphold our tried and true editorial standards, but to lean into them and actually strengthen them, along with Lauren Ezell, Erin Texera, and Nina Chowdhury. Thank you all for your important and essential editorial collaboration and also contributions. And I have special gratitude to Susan Goldberg, our CEO and president of GBH, who is here today, for supporting these values as a journalist and editor herself. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, we can clap. And I have to thank Sylvia Bugg from PBS and Kathy Merritt from CPB, who are here today as well. A series like Frontline, this is really important, we all know this too, is not possible without the support from PBS, CPB, and GBH. These are our public media supporters. This is essential for the health of our investigative journalism, but they've supported us since day one. At Frontline, we're in constant conversation about our journalistic values, how we gather our scenes, our interviews, to what our editorial and narrative line is in our documentaries. Our conversations are robust, sometimes with math, they're vigorous, and of course, as with all good journalism, it's not easy, right? We have arguments, we get new facts, we think hard, and most of all, and I really take this literally to the moment of publishing, we report against our assumptions and conclusions right up until the moment we publish. We all do this, and this is really the beacon of journalism. And I do believe that this helps our work become more nuanced and, very importantly, right now, fair to all that we report on. This is increasingly important, and I think you made the right choice on the topic this year, as we all work to combat disinformation, to get it right, and to challenge ourselves to also and always try harder. It's a real honor for me to accept this award, and now the long-form part of this celebration, I think, might be over. Thank you very much.
This is enough to make you want to come out of retirement. It's wonderful. But one more documentary gets a Cronkite Award. This one from a local station, KXAS in Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth. Judges called Against All Enemies a standout that could go up against a network production, one that shows that the NBC O&O's commitment to invest the resources to do a professional job. The NBC5 Investigates team, I'm going to just pause here because I still can't believe this happened, revealed that a former Oath Keeper had infiltrated the official training program of Texas sheriffs and planted disinformation in the lesson plan. Sheriffs were being instructed that their power constitutionally exceeds the authority of the FBI and even the president's authority. Let's watch a clip.
On the CSPOA website, it actually says, we are a higher authority even than the President of the United States. Their view is they answer only to the Constitution, but of course it's the Constitution as they interpret it.
But this idea that may sound ridiculous to the constitutional law experts we spoke to is actually drawing a crowd of Texas law enforcement officials to hear the message. We've obtained government records, including internal law enforcement emails, showing how Richard Mack has been able to organize training sessions for law enforcement across the state. Trainings that have been supported by sheriffs, constables, prominent Texas elected officials, and even the state agency that certifies law enforcement officers.
We can't have extremists who are misstating the law for their own purposes get in and poison trainings for law enforcement. This is a national security issue. It's also a state security issue.
So we set out to see why Richard Mack has his sights set on Texas.
Texas is the state where it's growing the fastest.
And how he responds to those who say he's spreading a lie.
Tell the professor who said that he's an idiot and a liar.
Professors. Accepting the award for the NBC5 Investigates team, Bonnie Moon, Eva Parks, and Scott Friedman. Scott, and pass it on down. Oh, am I short one? Oh.
One more, all right. Well, thank you very much, USC Annenberg Norman Lear Center, for this incredible Cronkite Award recognition. This is a project that started when Bonnie Moon, an executive producer in our newsroom, came to my group and asked if we would help answer a very good question. The question was essentially, of all the towns in America, why was Stuart Rhodes living in a town west of Dallas in our viewing area in the years before the assault on the Capitol? And as I like to say, one of the best things about investigative reporting is that a good question often leads to another question and to another, and sometimes that takes you down an unexpected path. And in this case, the path led us to see how some law enforcement officials, including some with past connections to Stewart Rhodes, have continued to promote core concepts of the Oath Keepers in Texas and beyond, concepts that legal scholars tell us simply have no basis in the law, including this notion that local law enforcement officials have power under the Constitution to interpose and overrule the federal government when the locals personally deem some federal action to be unconstitutional. So with help from Bonnie and our producer Eva Parks, researcher Don Peritz, we began to unearth records detailing how law enforcement officials from dozens of Texas agencies had attended trainings run by a group that promotes these concepts. And we obtained handouts that shed light on the ideology promoted in those sessions. At the time, law enforcement officials who attended the trainings, as you heard, could receive continuing education credit from the state of Texas for attending those sessions. So we questioned state officials about that, and the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement then began its own investigation. Today we have an update to that. We can tell you that 2 weeks ago, almost 5 months after our series premiered, the commission announced it will prohibit police and sheriffs from receiving state credit for those classes in the future. On the visual side of the project, credit goes to Mike Ortiz, our photojournalist who traveled the back roads of Texas and beyond to tell the story, the way back roads in some cases. Edward Ayala stepped in to beautifully edit the video, assisted by Ian Chapoy, who built graphics to illustrate how this law enforcement movement has spread across the state. Our Vice President of News, John Stone, supported this months-long effort, and teams like ours don't exist without incredible management like Valerie Staub and Kevin Keeshan and others at the NBC-owned Stations Group. I also want to say thank you today to all of you for producing the projects being recognized here. This work can feel like a bit of a lonely road sometimes because voices that seek to spread disinformation can seem louder than voices of truth and reason at times. And so as journalists, I think events like this are moments for us to come together and support each other. We have to remain united in reminding our audiences that fiction does not gain truthiness simply because it's spoken by people in positions of power. Repeating falsehoods again and again does not suddenly make them true. We have to counter with facts. If we don't, disinformation will become the perceived truth in more and more communities, and that can only benefit those who seek to operate separate and apart from the laws and institutions that hold this country together. So we leave here today grateful for this honor and with a renewed commitment to supporting each other in pursuing truth. Thank you again.
Thanks, Scott. Great work. If you're wondering why a few people have departed the room, I know Terry Moran got a notice that the indictment was about to be unsealed. You don't even have to say what that is, right? And that's why everybody's scrolling on their phones. Anyway, we're going to take a really lightning quick break to get you dessert and back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I love the energy in this room, and I wish we had the rest of the weekend, but no one wants to do that. And so I am delighted that we have said hi to each other, maybe had a little sugar, and now we are going to proceed. Some amazing stuff we've heard, some amazing more to come. Since 2013, the Cronkite Awards have honored fact-checking in TV journalism by presenting an award in partnership with factcheck.org at the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg School Public Policy Center, APPC. Judy and I and everyone else involved with the Cronkite Award at the Lear Center and USC Annenberg want to thank APPC and its director, Kathleen Hall Jamieson, for generously hosting this awards lunch and gathering of winners from around the country and around the world. So just a word of thanks to them. To present the Brooks Jackson Award, please welcome the Director of Fact Check Award, Eugene Kiley. Where is he? Oh, here he is. You snuck up on me.
Hello. The Brooks Jackson Prize for Fact-Checking is named for Brooks Jackson. Okay. The Brooks Jackson Prize for Fact-Checking is named for Brooks Jackson, the veteran journalist who pioneered ad watch and fact-check stories debunking false and misleading political statements. In 2003, he co-founded factcheck.org with the director of the Annenberg Public Policy Center, Kathleen Hall Jamieson. This year, Brooks Jackson Prize goes to Chris Engels, investigative reporter with King 5 News, an NBC affiliate in Seattle, for a 5-part series that debunked a disinformation campaign that sought to undermine public trust in Washington state's elections. Engels vetted claims of voter registration anomalies in 3 Washington counties made by the so-called Voter Integrity Project. He used public records, requests, old-fashioned shoe leather, and effective interviews to expose false and misleading claims about voter fraud. Let's take a look.
In September of last year, we tracked similar programs at churches in Cedar-Woolley, Marysville, Snohomish, Federal Way, Puyallup, and Lacey. All events made claims that elections are swayed by incompetence or corruption.
Yes, he won, and we all know it. Because there's so much fraud here, it's easy to find.
The keynote speaker at the Cowboy Church was Douglas Frank, described as a physicist with a doctorate.
And I found a 6th-order polynomial in every state, and it's as high as it goes. And so it's like breadcrumbs. It's like America was stolen by an Excel spreadsheet.
Frank has crisscrossed the country, claiming that he's uncovered a secret algorithm that proves somebody, presumably Democrats, manipulates votes to win elections.
Your registration databases are where you're getting hacked. That's where you're losing your elections, because you're filling your registration with phantom voters.
Frank's stolen election claim was backed by another national election denier.
I'm an engineer.
Who put up more charts and graphs.
I didn't know what they were talking about. Yeah. Did you get what they were saying? Well, I'm pretty new, and boy, that's way above my pay grade. There's a lot of information that is just way past my IQ.
Is there any truth to what he's saying?
At a top line, high level summary, there is absolutely no truth to his claims.
Stanford University professor Justin Grimmer just published this research report that calls Frank's formula for vote manipulation worthless and wrong, a conclusion echoed by many experts.
It is impossible for folks who are just trying to go about their daily lives to know all of that, to know that this guy who's up there, who is an incredibly well-spoken presenter, is telling them something that is just simply junk. It's not true at all.
Accepting the Brooks Jackson Award, Chris Engels.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, factcheck.org. I don't remember the exact words, but I think the story pitch sounded like a reporter boondoggle. That guy that says, hey, I got to go cover this story. I need a few days. And then he comes back and he's got nothing, But when I pitched this to my boss, I said, hey, boss, I need to drive to some faraway places, need to talk to a bunch of people, need a few days, make that a few weeks. There may or may not be a story there. And I think the fact that my boss at King 5, Julie Wolfe, invests not only in a story, but a possible story, checking it out, is what makes us the TV station that we are, and I'm very thankful for that. This series, The Fraud Crusade, I think revealed sort of a window into the future of misinformation, not super sophisticated, but more savvy than what we saw in the 2020 presidential election, where there was no evidence to the claims, right? Well, here we followed these conservative citizens groups that were going door to door in Washington state to confirm that voters lived at the address where they were registered. In a vote by mail state like Washington, that's everything, because that's where your ballot goes, right? So if you're not living where your ballot goes, that could be evidence of fraud. And in the 3 counties we looked at, They said they found 3,000 suspicious voter registrations. And through fact-checking, we found out that that wasn't true. So I want to thank my boss, Julie Wolf, who signed off on this story, our general manager at King 5, Christy Moreno, and Tegna, our parent company, which has investigative units all over the country that are doing fine work, and I appreciate that about our company. And also I want to thank factcheck.org. I want to thank the Annenberg Policy Centers at USC and at the University of Pennsylvania for recognizing the drudgery of fact-checking. It's kind of boring stuff. And the people that look at our stories, they're not going to say, wow, those guys are brilliant investigative journalists. They're going to say, they worked hard to get to the truth in that story. And that's fact-checking. And finally, I want to say thank you to the woman in the back there. I don't see her. Oh, she's got a camera in her hand. That's my wife, Stephanie, who is a prize-winning wife and mother. Also, she's a healthcare worker. Career healthcare worker. They don't send them out to Washington, D.C. to get trophies, but they are saving lives every day, and that's her. Thank you.
This year, the Cronkite judges singled out 3 award winners for special recognitions. Jordan Klepper is recognized for his use of humor outside traditional journalistic platforms to inform and engage audiences. Judges said his reports from the CPAC convention in Orlando and from the Orban campaign in Hungary locate the U.S. far right in its global context, calling them well-researched and rooted in basic journalistic techniques, being on the ground, conducting interviews, making firsthand observations. They emphasized the huge value in what he does, reaching an audience, especially young people who might not otherwise hear stories, showing how swiftly authoritarians can undermine freedom and democratic institutions. Let's have a look.
Is CRT really a big issue?
Big time. In Palm Beach County,
What about the Don't Say Gay bill?
that is very active right now.
There's a lot of nervousness here in Florida about CRT, about LGBTQ
Right.
issues. Should we just outlaw the alphabet altogether? Because eventually they're going to start putting those things together and they become words, and then you can learn things like history. The MAGA crowd's obsessions were predictable. Is this a little much? But there was a new infatuation I was surprised to hear, because for the first time at CPAC, people were applauding another country.
Hungary's on the forefront.
When you see people like leaders like in Hungary talking and speaking the way that Donald Trump did when he was in office, it inspires me.
I think Hungary is a positive example about how being a confident conservative can really do wonderful things for a country.
That's right, conservatives here were looking for inspiration from Hungary, the Central European country that's been steadily sliding away from democracy under its right-wing leader, Viktor Orban. And unsurprisingly, Orban and Trump supporters were in lockstep in one area.
Nagyon örülünk, hogy az Orbán Viktor a hagyományos családot képviseli, mert
Véleményem alapvetően az, hogy mindenki úgy éli meg a szexuális orientációját, ahogyan akarja. Az viszont megint más, amikor más emberekre szeretnék rá erőszakolni.
LGBTQ people are support or not support, but
What's the opposite of support? They're
not the opposite.
somewhere.
It's a personal issue. You don't have to bring intimacy to politics.
It's a personal issue that should be agreed upon by the majority as to what those personal folks with their issues should be able to do.
Yes, and I think if they don't like it here, they can travel to the other country where they can marry each other and adopt children and so on and so on.
If you want equality, hit the road, Jack.
I think yes.
And if Hungarians do want legal protections for the LGBTQ, they need to GTFO. Because during Viktor Orban's time in office, he's barred gay families from adopting, passed a law prohibiting their depiction in children's books and TV, and even outlawed same-sex marriage in Hungary's constitution. So basically, they're fine with you being gay as long as you live your life as a straight person.
At this point, I had hoped to, in fact, we were planning to invite Jordan to the podium, but a kind of force majeure intervened, as you'll hear. He'd be far better at delivering his own message than I will. No one does a better deadpan than Jordan Klepper, but here we go. I'd like to thank the Walter Cronkite Awards for the award recognizing the use of humor to inform and engage audiences. Frankly, I can't think of anything funnier than imagining Walter Cronkite being told that the award bearing his name was being given to an improv comedian whose main skill is genitalia puns. Mr. Cronkite, I'm sorry, but the news is in a weird place right now. It is also both humbling and inspiring to be honored along with the other recipients. I fully support the Walter Cronkite Awards effort to highlight projects that aim to combat disinformation and defend democracy. Right now, democracy can use all the defense it can get. This year, I will not be attending the in-person ceremony in solidarity with the ongoing WGA strike. The work being honored, Jordan Klepper Fingers the Globe, Hungary for Democracy, was a team effort that relied on many people, including a talented group of WGA writers, myself included, while tackling such inherently hilarious topics like authoritarian policies in Eastern Europe may seem like a slam dunk for political satire. It is the work of the union members on our special that helped make it possible. Thank you for the honor, and I'll be there with you getting day drunk when writers get their fair wage. With respect and admiration, Jordan Klepper. I guess I'll keep my day job.
What is your day job? I'm just kidding. A Cronkite Award goes to NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins in special recognition of his incisive reporting from the trenches of the information war. Judges praised his brilliant, brave work, saying it's inspiring to watch him bearing witness to the extremism on the dark web and holding it accountable. They found his wrestling with the responsibilities of journalists and with his own journalism's impact or lack of it on violence honest and necessary. Here's what they mean. It comes at the end of a piece about his months of reporting about threats and disinformation campaigns targeting transgender Americans in the lead up to the Club Q shooting.
And she called police from inside, and they showed up in tactical gear.
And he said he was ready to
for hours.
And he said he was ready to blow on this Facebook Live. He was ready to get into a firefight over it.
And obviously he was brought in, but prosecutors did not go forward with the case, and we're still digging through and trying to figure out why exactly that is.
Yeah, and the case was sealed, which isn't, that part is not particularly different in Colorado law. I do want to say, though, am I doing something wrong here? Here are some headlines that I wrote the last 6 months. Fueled by internet's far-right machine, anti-LGBTQ threats shut down trans rights and drag events. Remember, there was a drag event happening in Colorado. Yeah. Anti-trans stalkers at Kiwi Farms, which is a anti-trans website that stalks people, are chasing one victim around the world. Their list of targets is growing. That was a couple months ago. Doctors under threat from far-right activists for providing trans care. Boston Children's Hospital faces bomb threat after right-wing harassment campaign. There were 3 of those bomb threats. FBI charges Massachusetts woman with Boston Children's Hospital bomb threats, so they found one of the people. At least 20 Republican politicians have claimed that schools are making accommodations for students who identify as cats. That was before the midterms. Here are 3 more from my colleagues in the last 3 weeks. As election nears, some conservative groups have ramped up anti-trans campaign ads. Far-right figures appear to be testing Twitter's boundaries for anti-LGBTQ speech. GOP senator targets TikTok influencer with anti-transgender taunts. And I'm just wondering, what could I have done different? Seriously, as reporters, what can we do different? Because there are 5 dead people in a strip mall, because that was the only place they felt safe as gay or trans people in this town in Colorado Springs. And I am trying to thread this needle here. I'm trying to say that this is happening. This targeted stuff has real life impacts. They say on the internet has real life impacts. And I'm gonna fail, by the way. I'm gonna, freak out because it's happening, because I wake up and I see that there are 5 dead bodies. But I think we have to have a come to Jesus moment here. As reporters, are we more afraid of being on Breitbart for saying that trans people deserve to be alive? Or are we more afraid of the dead people? Because I'm more afraid of the dead people. I don't want to wake up on a Sunday and see that all of these headlines came to fruition.
Accepting the Cronkite Award for his status update on the information war, Ben Collins.
Hi, everybody. I just want to, first of all, I want to thank the Lear Center and the Annenberg Center. It's really touched my heart. And I want to thank my colleague Brandy Zadrozny, the best reporter I know, and my best friend, who has been with me through all this stuff, and the producers who, even the booking producers, the anchor producers, all these people who get 0 credit but do all the work, and for putting me on TV when I shouldn't have been, frankly. I just want to say the truth is a fragile thing. It's a particularly difficult time for the truth to be quite so fragile. Whether we like it or not, we are in the middle of an information war. People with a lot of money and power are actively trying to kill the truth right now, as we speak. They believe that if they spread enough hatred and division, their crimes and misdeeds will go unnoticed. Some of them are trying to run a parallel ground war. Some of them are trying to sell cars. And so far, the plan has worked. A lot of people in charge of news organizations are, for one reason or another, refusing to accept this reality. Or they're learning it the hard way over the time. But I'm here to tell you right now, splitting the difference halfway between the lies pushed by powerful people and the truth leaves you telling half of the truth. As journalists, we are not in that business. We are stewards of the truth, and it needs our help right now. It is not our role to simply find the truth and deposit it on the street and expect it to survive. It needs someone to fight for it. It needs us to fight for it. There are some very brave and decent people in this room. It's unbelievable, actually, hearing your stories. And I realize this is an uncomfortable question. But the next time you're in an editorial meeting, someone asks you to couch the truth with a lie pushed by a powerful person, what will you do? Will you help that liar, or will you fight? I hope you will fight. Thank you.
This next award recognizes producer Madeline May and reporter Alexis Johnson for their Vice News stories, airing death threats to poll workers and calling back the people who made those threats. Judges said they did a compelling and courageous job uncovering the ugly and tragic human consequences of disinformation. Following up with law enforcement, the team found no investigations of those who made the calls, almost 0 consequences. But Johnson called many back herself. When she reached them, the callers were remorseless, justifying their behavior as patriotic. Judges marveled at Johnson's unflappable, courteous probing. "I don't think I could have done what she did," one said. I think that was me who said that, anyway. And applauded Vice News for airing the calls. Let's watch.
The president just tweeted about you. Not long after the former president tweeted at me, I received the first specific threat. "You lied. You're a traitor. Perhaps cuts and bullets will soon arrive," gave my address. Mentions my wife by name, mentions my kids by name, including my daughter by her nickname. "Rhino stole election. We steal lives. Q." I spoke to my wife a little bit after that. She had begun receiving threats on her work email. So she then took our kids and relocated away from our house. After that, some days later, there was another email message. The subject line are the names of my children. And I'm not comfortable reading the rest of it.
So this person called from Indiana and left this voicemail.
Either you're blind or you're crooked as so figure it out, buddy, because which side you going to be on when the shoot starts, brother?
Hi, my name is Alexis Johnson. I'm a reporter with Vice News. I'm recording this phone call. Can I ask you a question?
You know?
Why,
What's that?
What made you call into Georgia? Are you a Georgia resident? What made you call in?
I was watching One American News, and they put his phone number on there, and they said, give the man a call.
What did you mean when you said, figure out what side you're going to be on when the shooting starts?
Because what do you see coming? You know what happens when they defund the police?
So when you said when the shooting starts, you didn't mean as a direct threat to the people that work here.
See, that's exactly where you're going, and I figured no.
I just wanted to clear it up because I mean those were the words, and that's how some of the people that work here were taking that threat. They were pretty fearful.
Well, when you got people saying it's time to take the police off of the street, what choice do you have at that point?
Looking back, do you regret that at all?
No, I stand behind what I said. Ultimately, if you can sit right now in this country today and say that all of that was legal, that was the most secure, I mean, I don't know. I watch One American News. It's on in the background as we speak. I was never really a Trump supporter, but ultimately, they've turned me into one.
Mr. Risner, is it?
That's Reisner.
Mr. Reisner, I'm so sorry. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Accepting the award, Madeline May, Alexis Johnson, and Vice News Washington Bureau Chief Sebastian Walker.
Hello. I hate public speaking. Okay, thank you to the Norman Lear Center and the USC Annenberg School for this recognition. Thanks also to the Vice News DC team. That includes our Bureau Chief, Seb Walker, Brian Wheeler, Todd Zwillick, Ayanna Brickhouse, also our executives, Maral Yousefi, Nikki Egan, and Sabrata Day. I also want to thank our team that made this piece possible. That's our camera ops, Ben Bishop and Zach Wood, our editor, Nelson Ryland, and our writer, Netta Tulumi Samani. Vice is an incredible and unique platform for stories of consequence, and I'm so grateful to be part of the team that believes deeply in reporting like this. So election workers are at the center of this story, and I'm humbled that those individuals led us into their lives in this extremely vulnerable moment. Richard Barron of Fulton County, Deidre Holding of Paulding County, Al Schmidt of Philadelphia, and Roxana Morwitz of Cedar Rapids, these are the bureaucrats who work tirelessly to defend our democracy. I wanted to share with you all that the election workers featured in our reporting, of the 5 that we spoke to, 4 are no longer working in our elections. That includes Rick Barron of Fulton County, who I actually talked to on the phone today. I'd like to share some of his reflections. Barron resigned shortly after the 2020 elections, in part because of the strain of the threats made against him. He described having symptoms of PTSD, and his daughter was in a constant state of stress. Since that time, he has struggled to find work. He drives Uber, and he is still unemployed. He's been specifically rejected from other elections-related work because he's seen as a political liability by Republicans and Democrats. Barron said that he started in elections to safeguard against democracy, or safeguard for democracy, and improve access to early voting in Georgia. His motivating thought, which he wanted me to share with you, is by Horace Mann, which is, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." Unfortunately, because of the death threats, the calculated right-wing media conspiracy against him, and pressure from politicians, he is unable to continue in that work, which is his passion. He told me, "I don't want to sound like a victim, but sometimes I feel like my life is ruined by the 2020 election." Losing people like Barron in our elections because of political harassment is a real and ongoing threat to our country. I'm accepting this recognition on behalf of Barron and other election workers who protected all of us 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much to USC Annenberg, the Norman Lear Center, the judges that called me unflappable might be the best compliment I've ever received. I think I'm gonna get it tattooed, unflappable. I love that. Madeline named a lot of our executive producers, Nikki Egan, Maral Youssefi, our our executive vice president of news, Sabrata D. I want to thank our DC Bureau once again, our Bureau Chief, Seb Walker, our Deputy Bureau Chief, Todd Zwillick, our seniors, Brian Wheeler, Iona Brickhouse, for challenging us and really shaping our editorial coverage over the last 2 to 3 years that focused on assaults on democracy, which we branded Breaking the Vote. Our writer on this piece, Neda Tuli-Samani, our editor, Nelson Ryland, Zach Wood, who's here with us today, our director of photography, and Ben Bishop, who's in California probably surfing at the moment. I also want to thank my parents, of course, because I think if they figured out how to use this live stream link, I'm probably as proud of them as they are of me right now. So hi, Mom. If you've done it, you go, girl. My partner here, Jalen, is here to support me as well. And I want to thank my producer, Madeline May, who personally asked me to work on this project based off reporting she had already done. A year before the January 6th committee hearings put election workers like Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman in the national spotlight, Madeline was giving voice to election workers in Fulton County and some of those areas that she named, like Rick Barron. They were experiencing threats to their lives, their families' lives, immediately after the 2020 election. So when she asked me to contact some of the people who left those threats, which was totally her idea, by the way, I was like, sure. And then she said, okay, well, we're gonna do it all on camera. And I was like, oh, well, okay. All right, I think we can do that. I have to admit, I was obviously nervous, as unflappable as I came off. I had no idea what to expect. But when we found out that the police had not contacted most of those people that made those threats, let alone investigated any of the threats that had drove Rick Barron out of his home, I knew we had an opportunity to do some real reporting. What we found was that disinformation has seeped so far into the fabric of our politics, and other media outlets, as you heard, acted as direct sources of that disinformation, that folks who asked Rick Barron, which side are you gonna be on when the shooting starts, felt completely justified. As difficult and shocking as this story was to tell, I was proud to give our audience just a small glimpse into the psyche of these people who believed it was their patriotic duty to intimidate the innocent people who literally make our democracy run. And I hope it made our viewers realize how fragile democracy is at this very moment. Thank you.
This last award is for something near and dear to me. It recognizes a special achievement in news literacy. If we're serious about combating disinformation, we also have to get serious about civic education and news literacy. I'd start in the first grade if it were up to me. Judges praised Trust Me for taking on the worldwide effects of disinformation and spelling out how to spot and debunk it. It shows how dangerous it is to anyone who scrolls news sites. They said it should cause all of us to rethink media practices by the unscrupulous. The documentary aired on PBS World Channel. Let's watch a clip.
How do we figure out if we should trust these websites? Today's topic is going to be minimum wage. This link is asking you to evaluate this website for minimumwage.com.
One of the first things you should do is don't even read the article. You can come back to it, figure out if you can trust these guys. We call it lateral reading. We want to get off the page we're on and open up a new tab and read laterally. See what other sites are saying about them, maybe check out their Wikipedia page to see have they any controversies, see what other fact checkers or fact-checking groups have written about them. In a minute, you can get a quick lesson in like, oh, should I trust these guys or not?
So I'm going to open up a search, and the first thing that I'm going to search for is the Employment Policies Institute. So this one says Corporate America's New Scam, Industry PR Firms. So I'm going to click on this. How the media fell for the propagandist respectable sounding Employment Policies Institute. Now, if I scroll down a little bit more, who actually is funding this think tank? It's owned by a public relations firm, And in fact, they were sponsored by the restaurant industry.
You create groups that look like they are legitimate grassroots efforts that are actually the products of corporate and political interests that portray themselves as a groundswell of the common person.
So why would the restaurant industry sponsor a website that says minimum wage is bad?
Because business owners, the restaurant owners, they don't want to pay their employees too much.
Absolutely, and the restaurants are sort of one of the key industries where we really see people working for minimum wage. They have put out numerous reports that increasing the minimum wage could be harmful, increasing poverty and unemployment. If I think about something like minimum wage, there's an election tomorrow. And what if there was something on the ballot about minimum wage? How might that impact me as a voter? That I might walk in and I might vote against something that I actually believe in, right? Or that I actually care about. So that becomes really important.
Accepting the award for Trust Me, producer Joe Phelps and director Rocco Bellich.
Thanks for extending your lunch hour. Yeah, I'm Joe. This is Rocco, our good-hearted, extremely talented director. And I'd just like to start by telling you about the flashpoint for this project. I was standing in line at Ralph's Supermarket in Pacific Palisades, and I've been over to a little 5-year-old girl, and I said, "How are you today, sweetie?" And she grabbed her mother's leg, and her mother scowled at me as if I was a pedophile. And at first I was hurt and angered. And then as I thought more about it, I realized this woman consumes media day in and day out, and she doesn't have a clue about how to properly source and consume and share media, and it's rubbing off on her little girl, right? So that was what really one of the things that gave me the impetus to put part of my retirement into this project, and it's about teaching people. It's about somehow controlling mis and disinformation without using legislation, because of our penchant for free press, freedom of speech, our ability to legislate is so minimalized. So if you can't legislate, you must educate. If you can't legislate, you must educate. And that's where the people in this room come in, because you've dedicated your lives to finding and reporting on the empirical truth, right? So I do want to thank you, Rocco. My God, it was so much fun working with this guy. And the people in this room who dedicate their lives to finding the truth and helping people understand how to consume messages, and to Annenberg and all the jury and so forth at Walter Cronkite. So thank you very much.
You guys, it's an amazing honor to be here. I'm not raised as a journalist. I wasn't trained as a journalist. And the first time I came to DC, I was in 8th grade on a school trip. And one of the guides we had, she said to us, one of the most important things about democracy is a free and fair press. And I thought, that sounds a little crazy. Isn't education important? Isn't justice important? Isn't the hospital system where I got my broken leg fixed, isn't that important? Now, since that time, I've traveled, and I've been to countries where there is no free and fair press. And I've seen that some of these countries don't have those other systems. And I realized that it's a free and a fair press that enables those systems to develop. And when freedom of speech is taken away, sometimes those systems that I care about so much, that improve our lives, are abolished. They suffer, or sometimes they're taken away completely. Now, I know that these systems are not perfect. We're working on it. But it's a huge honor to be in this room amongst the journalists, through the broadcast, amongst all people who are striving to make this a more perfect union. Thank you so much.
As you can imagine, it takes more than a village to produce this event and the year-long competition leading up to it.
We want to thank the more than 40 Annenberg faculty and alumni in journalism and communication who screened and judged these entries.
Thank you to the terrific team at the Lear Center who made all the moving parts move. Veronica Haudicke, Russ DeVita, and with us here today, Jolie Lowe, Christian Hurtado, and Roberta Kruger.
Thank you also to Karen Riley at APPC.
Thank you to my friend and co-host, the inimitable Judy Muller.
Inimitable. You said inimitable so well. I call you indefatigable. Okay. Thank you, Marty. I love doing this.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. Take your trophies, get your pictures taken with your posses outside, and see you in a couple years. Thank you.